airlines on their passenger comfort level. Consumer Reports only on Channel 5 News, 5 o'clock report.
Turn to Channel 5 for weather you can count on. From ABC News, World News Sunday, here's Forrest Sawyer.
Good evening. Soundly defeated in his race to become Louisiana's next governor, David Duke is saying he will stay in politics. The former Ku Klux Klan leader and Nazi activist says he still wants to change American politics. But Louisiana voters did not buy his message. The final tally shows Edwin Edwards winning by a landslide, 61% to 39%, with a record 78% voter turnout. ABC's Jim Wooten has more on one of the most closely watched governor's races in history.
On the streets of New Orleans' French Quarter last night, the celebrations lasted well into the wee hours, long after it was clear that Edwards had won an unprecedented fourth term as governor by a stunningly comfortable margin. He called it a victory for the good guys.
Tonight, Louisiana became first to turn back the merchant of hate, the master of deceit.
Duke was willing to concede that his candidacy had lost, but not the political message of his campaign.
That campaign is not over. It's only just beginning.
Today, Vice President Quayle agreed that Duke's themes are powerful.
The message of David Duke is this, basically. Big government, anti-big government, get out of my pocketbook, cut my taxes, put welfare people back to work. That's a very popular message. The problem is the messenger.
But Governor Edwards said today that the Reagan and Bush administrations had set the stage for Duke and his popularity, even though his racist background eventually beat him.
On the other hand, without his baggage, he never would have become the media personality that he was. He never would have gotten this far.
As expected, Duke captured a majority of white voters, about 53%. But Edwards won with an extraordinarily large turnout of black voters and a curious coalition of liberals and conservatives, Democrats and Republicans, more than half of whom supported Edwards not because they trust him, but because they feared Duke. Today, the governor-elect addressed that absence of faith.
I want to be a good governor. I recognize the opportunity that I have. I'm going to make mistakes, but they're going to be mistakes of the head and not of the heart. We're going to do this right.
But whatever Edwards does, it will be within the clear context of Duke's broad-based support among the white middle class of Louisiana and perhaps the rest of the South. That's exactly the kind of support that could become a sizable headache for President Bush and the Republicans should Duke choose to take his politics of protest into next year's presidential campaign. Jim Wooten, ABC News, New Orleans.
Politicians already troubled by the implications of David Duke's candidacy are facing another big worry. Friday's 120-point stock market plunge. Investors are nervously waiting for Monday to see which way the market heads. And today, we asked some of the country's top economists what they think is going on.
The market will be very jittery Monday because there are still concerns that a lot of stocks had a big run-up in value. Now they're coming off their highs. There's still concerns over what the Congress will do about legislating interest rates on credit cards. The real estate problem continues to plague a lot of companies, insurance companies in particular, and the economy is just very, very weak, and that has to concern the market.
I think the credit card legislation was probably the most important factor pulling stock prices down on Friday, and when added to computerized program trading, was responsible for turning what might have been a minor decline into the 120-point route.
Well, I think we have some more downside to go. The optimism in the stock market on the expectation of recovery has been dashed by recent economic news, which says no recovery, perhaps more recession. And then we have real uncertainty as to whether Washington can handle it.
Some very unusual things are happening in America. Americans have been pessimistic in the past in the middle of recessions about the short-term picture. But this is perhaps the first time in my recollection that Americans are quite pessimistic about the long term.
See what happens Monday. No reason to get all concerned.
No reason to get concerned, says the president. The fact is, a lot of Americans are concerned. And joining us now from the floor of the New York Stock Exchange is its chairman, William Donaldson. Mr. Donaldson, this was the 5th largest single-day decline in market history. What was the market trying to tell us on Friday?
Well, I think the market was concerned about a number of things for us. First off is the credit card issue, the proposed legislation in front of Congress. Secondly, I think we've had quite a big run-up in this market since the beginning of the year, some 15%, and clearly the decline we had on Friday was a pullback from that.
Everybody's looking toward Monday. Tokyo traders are already busy. What do you see happening there?
Well, it's a little hard to tell. I think it was, although it was a precipitous decline on Friday, it was an orderly decline. All of our systems were working well. We have no indication that there's any financial stress in any of the member firms. So I think we'll just have to wait and see what happens on Monday.
Have you talked to the trading desks of the member firms like Shearson or Merrill?
We are in touch with the trading desk of the member firms, yes. Mm-hmm.
What are they telling you?
Well, they're telling us that the decline was pretty orderly on Friday and that we don't see any extraordinary stresses. Our systems worked well. The so-called circuit breakers that we have in place now as a result of earlier declines worked as they should have worked, so that this decline was much more under control than I think the ones in the past have been.
Mr. Donaldson, you know the small investors look back to October 1987 when there was about a 108-point drop on Friday and then more than a 500-point drop on Monday. Black Monday, it was called. Do we have to worry about that sort of thing happening this time?
Well, I think it's always a mistake to look at past events in a market and expect them to repeat themselves. I don't think anybody living today will know exactly what's going to happen on Monday, but as I say, I think the decline on Friday was well controlled. I think our systems, our circuit breakers are in place. I think we ought to put this decline in the context of we had a less than or a little better than 3% decline in a market that's been up 15% this year in the face of an uncertain economic environment.
It is nevertheless a big day. Do you plan to be in your office early?
Oh, yes, we'll be here.
William Donaldson, chairman of the New York Stock Exchange. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Coming up, can Congress still save you money on your credit card interest? And later in this broadcast, the endless hours of training for one of the fastest rising stars in tennis. And
there would be no growth for months. The circulation would be stopped. There would be no sunlight. It is really a horror story.
Trying to protect the planet Earth from runaway space debris.
World News Sunday. Brought to you by Charles Schwab.
Today, Tektridge Shoe Corporation announced a major retail expansion in 25 U.S. cities.
When I see a company that looks like a good investment, I check it out myself.
We make it easier to follow your own lead.
At Charles Schwab, I can get quotes, financial news, and when I make a trade, commission savings.
Always there to give you just the help you need.
Help yourself at Schwab today.
Chalk up Winston Cup Championship number 5 to the teamwork of Dale Earnhardt, Goodwrench Racing, and genuine GM parts.
The president's men were out in force today to denounce the move in Congress to lower interest rates on credit cards. Now, as you would expect, the idea is popular among consumers. But administration officials say the proposal has already caused one big economic scare on Wall Street and would have more severe consequences if it were to become law. ABC's Sheila Cast reports from Capitol Hill.
120 million Americans use credit cards to charge $500 billion worth a year. And they're not happy that every other interest rate in the economy has fallen, but not theirs.
I think that credit card companies charge you much too much in interest.
I think the rates are ridiculous.
And
economic interests.
So does President
Our national
Bush,
security
and
interests
said so
as
at
well.
a business lunch
We have
last
good
week.
relations in
But he was
improving
not
relations
expecting that Congress would try to put his wish into law by ordering banks and other credit card issuers to cut their rates from the current average of 19% to 14%.
We're paying, working middle-class families are paying for people who are bad credit risk. What kind of free economy system is this?
Outraged banks warned that half the nation's credit card holders would be cut off as poor credit risks if banks had to trim their margins. They flooded Congress with letters and claimed D'Amato's amendment helped trip the stock market on Friday. The Bush administration backed them up.
This will shrink the amount of credit available in the United States by hundreds of billions of dollars. It's totally counterproductive.
The pressure is now on the House, which may not act. On This Week with David Brinkley, the vice president described what will happen if they do.
The president will make sure that this does not become law, and if that requires a veto, so be it.
Consumers had been angry at the banks, but if Congress fails to follow through, that anger...
Some weather news to report. In the Pacific Northwest, a powerful storm packing 70-mile-per-hour winds has left more than 130,000 homes and businesses without power. The storm dumped hail over Puget Sound in Washington State early today, and it also severed high-voltage power lines and knocked down utility poles. No known injuries so far. When we return, Haitian refugees setting sail on uncertain waters.
Here's coffee. You know, my decaffeinated is darker than yours.
And you wake up perkier, and your newspaper's more in-depth.
Wait. I'll do it again. Here's your brand. My Folgers Crystals, mountain grown. I'm filling. I'm pouring. I'm darker.
Okay. Can I have a taste?
Sure. Decaffeinated Folgers Crystals, so dark and rich. Shouldn't you switch?
You know, your decaffeinated is darker than mine.
I was a dedicated beard wearer until my wife gave me the new Remington Microscreen Elite. It's quick. It's close. The Remington Microscreen Elite has 2 ultra-thin screens and 112 diamond-honed cutting edges. The first screen shaves incredibly close. The second even closer. The Remington Microscreen Elite, so comfortable, shaves as close as a blade or your money back. And the Lady Remington, the perfect gift. Shave wet or dry. Super value shavers from Remington.
We built this business.
After my accident, they advanced my insurance benefits and built me a ramp and got me back on my feet.
Built this business.
Our people really care. It meant a lot to us.
It was the global telecommunications link-up they built. Saved the negotiation.
We built this business to build your dreams.
Mice. For everyone you see, there may be 15 or 20 that you don't see, and they eat in many different places. A very unhealthy situation. But put Decon Mouse-Prufe in the places mice feed, like behind the refrigerator, the cupboard, the washer, and you'll eliminate them faster. Decon Mouse-Prufe gets mice right where they live.
Do you know what my favorite country is? Country Scent Lysol Disinfectant Spray. It's all the power of Lysol spray in a fresh country scent.
The chairman of a special congressional task force says there is new evidence showing El Salvador's top military commanders ordered the 1989 slayings of 6 Jesuit priests and 2 women. Those murders stirred an international outcry and led to a cutoff of U.S. military aid. Massachusetts Congressman John Joseph Moakley says this information comes from confidential sources in El Salvador, and that includes sources in the military. Haitians fleeing their impoverished Caribbean island nation are posing a dilemma for U.S. policymakers and for the U.S. Coast Guard. The flow of refugees has hit record levels with nearly 1,700 detained in just the past 3 weeks, 700 of them this weekend alone. Those refugees had hoped to reach freedom in Florida, but as Mark Potter reports, they are in custody instead, in and near Cuba.
The Coast Guard is now stopping Haitian sailboats around the clock. Nearly 1,200 Haitians are being held aboard 5 Coast Guard cutters. 500 more refugees are detained at the U.S. naval base in Cuba. Fearing a disaster, the Coast Guard is now sending more ships and planes to the waters north of Haiti. All 29 of the Haitian sailboats found in the last 3 weeks had major safety problems.
And they have no life jackets, they have no distress signaling, they have no radios. Some of them are very heavily overloaded. One 40-foot vessel had 238 people.
In Creole language broadcast, the Voice of America is telling Haitians not to make the dangerous trip. Most will not be allowed into the U.S. because the State Department fears it would entice other Haitians to set sail. They also won't be returned to Haiti with all of its turmoil. At U.S. urging, other countries have agreed to take several hundred of the refugees. But until details can be worked out, all of them remain in Coast Guard custody. In Miami this weekend, protesters demanded the U.S. take all the refugees, a view shared by Florida's Republican senator.
We believe in things. We believe in the ideas of freedom and democracy. To now be saying, oh, wait a minute, let's find some third world countries that will accept these folks, that's wrong.
While authorities disagree on what to do, they are bracing for what they all believe is inevitable. A lot more Haitians setting sail on dangerous waters. Mark Potter, ABC News, Miami.
Secretary of State Baker is headed back to Washington after 3 days of talks with Chinese leaders. Baker admitted the talks did produce some gains, but not as much as he had hoped for. Baker said progress was made on human rights, trade, and arms control, but the gulf between Washington and Beijing is still too wide to expect a major breakthrough in just one diplomatic trip. And in Cambodia, Son Sen, the Khmer Rouge's high executioner during its reign of terror, returned to the capital city of Phnom Penh today. The former army chief who orchestrated the slaughter of tens of thousands of his own countrymen will take his seat on Cambodia's Supreme National Council. The council is a reconciliation body which will set policy in Cambodia until the United Nations can organize a general election. And in a moment, the hottest 16-year-old in tennis and her rambunctious ride to the top. Ray Gandolf and sports when we come back.
Each year, corporate America spends over $10 billion on overnight shipping. Yet according to a report in the Wall Street Journal, $3 billion of that is wasted. If you find that kind of inefficiency alarming, call UPS. We can save you up to 40% on overnight deliveries and help prevent your profits from going up in smoke. UPS. We run the tightest ship in the shipping business.
Do you have a cold?
Yes, I do. It feels like the ocean is in my head.
Here's 2 cold medicines. This relieves these 3 symptoms, this 9. Choose one.
9. I have all of those symptoms. Sinus pain, nasal congestion, and I have a scratchy throat.
Here's what you chose. Are you shocked?
Yeah, I am.
Would you try Dristan Cold? How do you feel?
The Dristan really works.
Dristan Cold relieves 9 tough cold symptoms. Dristan Cold, part of the Dristan family of products. Dristan, the face of relief today.
He's back. This time we get him. STP gas treatment. Cleans intake valves and fuel injectors to help engines run better. STP, the edge.
We built this business.
They came in with their big pumps and stopped the flooding. Saved my business. All I've worked for.
Built this business.
Your people really cared. It meant a lot to us.
They lent me the money. Without it, Debbie couldn't have started college.
We built this business to build your dreams.
Hey, you haven't got time to waste. So if you want your problems fixed fast...
Just ask Ace.
Yeah.
This quality Ace cordless drill is a best buy at only $32.88 with a rechargeable battery that also fits other Ace cordless tools.
When help is what you need and you want it done now, ask Ace.
Thursday, charges of phony faith healing, money for missions that don't exist, a hidden camera investigation. Should men of God live like kings? Prime time.
Thursday. Ray Gandolf is cozying up to the microphone in New York for a look at why tennis is a family affair for the up-and-coming Mary Pierce. And, of course, he has today's sports highlights. Ray.
Thank you, Forrest. Those relentless Washington Redskins roll on. Today, Mark Rippon passed for 325 yards and 2 touchdowns as Washington steamrolled the Pittsburgh Steelers for their 11th win without a loss. Kansas City's Steve DeBerg was intercepted 4 times. This one run back for a touchdown by Charles Dimry of Denver, and the Broncos take the lead in the AFC West. Pete Sampras, serving in the near court here to Jim Courier, earned more than $1 million today by winning the big tournament in Frankfurt, Germany. After dropping the first set to Courier, Sampras took the next 3 and left Courier flopping on the shore. Mary Pierce is a promising young tennis player, just 16, who is on the rise because of and despite her father Jim, who has taken her under his wing and put her under his thumb.
Yes, amen.
If I can put Mary out and let her have a good tennis career and be out in the fresh air and the sunshine and away from drugs and away from bad people and away from alcohol and stuff like that, then I will have done my job. And then I'm not just trying to beat no drum. That is my purpose in life.
And Jim Pierce pursues that purpose with a dedication that lies somewhere between devotion and obsession.
Let me see any woman in the world hit a ball that hard.
He abandoned his trade as a jeweler to spend 5 hours a day, 6 days a week on tennis courts with his daughter Mary. She is a 16-year-old professional who has risen in 2 years to a ranking of about 30th in the world. She travels from tournament to tournament with her father, her mother Yannick, and her kid brother David. They have no permanent home. Where do you live now?
Live? On the road.
We're doing so much traveling all the time, you know, going from place to place, all the tournaments and stuff. You really don't have time just to settle down in one place.
You miss it?
No. Well, yeah, sure you do. Sometimes you just like to go back and go home and have your own room and things like that. But right now I'm enjoying it and traveling, seeing different things and places.
When one of those places is Florida, you might find Mary working out with Herman Aguayo, an old friend, and the closest thing to an outside coach that Mary has. Jim Pierce refuses to turn her career over to the tennis establishment, believing that father knows best.
Can we be wrong what we're doing? Because nobody, and I don't care who you pull, whose name you pull out of the book, there is nobody that has done what Mary Pierce is doing and has done at her age with no help, with no finances. Nobody has done it. Nobody.
You're all making quite a sacrifice for the sake of Mary's career.
Well, you know, you can say that maybe it's like a family affair, right? Somebody has a business, family business, that's the same thing.
Right now, Mary Pierce is the family business. They live on part of her winnings, put the rest aside for her. At tournaments, Jim is a rambunctious protector of his cub.
I've done some things that I'm guilty of, yes, because I wouldn't let anybody steamroll my daughter or my family, and I won't. I won't lay down and let them roll over my family. I want Mary to be 50 years old, and I want her to look back and say, thank you, Daddy, for giving me a chance in life.
Jim Pierce is certainly doing that. His road is unorthodox, protective to the point of suffocation. But so far, for him and his family, it seems to be working. You see her as number one?
For Mary, for me, there's no problem whatsoever, not because I'm her papa.
You have a timetable of any kind?
No. No.
Goals?
Just to be the best I can be.
As the breadwinner for a family of 4, Mary Pierce has earned about $85,000 this year on the courts. Forrest?
Thank you, Ray. And when we come back, some Arizona astronomers who want to know if the sky is falling.
He could have had the 60-foot sailboat, the house on the 18th green. But all Ned Crowley ever really wanted was a home on the range. At Dean Witter, our retirement plans are as individual as the people who dream them.
We measure success one investor at a time.
Well, boys, how do you like the new backyard?
Now you don't need a prescription to get prescription strength medicine for itches and rashes. Introducing new Maximum Strength Cord Aid. Now with twice the healing medicine. New Maximum Strength Cord Aid. Prescription strength without a prescription.
If your doctor has recommended Metamucil and you like the results, but you don't like those glasses of thick liquid, change to FiberCon. Get the same fiber action in easy-to-swallow tablets. Get doctor-recommended FiberCon.
Monday, just who has access to your credit report?
Then Steffi Graf's fight to become #1 again, plus John Mellencamp here on Good Morning America, Monday.
There is a lot to worry about these days. The stagnant economy, crime, the environment, and we figured, what the heck? Why not add one more thing to the list? How about a real live assault from outer space? Our science correspondent Jim Slade's been doing some investigating.
It's one of science fiction's favorite themes, a massive asteroid, space debris, locked on a collision course with Earth.
Make the hole big enough to put the Atlantic in unless we can stop it.
And in the movie, he's right. Who argues with Carl Malden? Well, it's not all movie malarkey. In 1908, a space object blew into the atmosphere over Siberia. The shock waves were felt thousands of miles away and left this. This one, caught on a home movie camera, skimmed over the Grand Tetons in 1972. And some scientists believe the environmental effects of a meteor striking Earth were the dinosaurs' coup de grace. Clouds of dirt, smoke from fires could have created long-range effects as bad as the impact itself.
There would be no sunlight for months. There would be no growth for months. The circulation would be stopped. There would be no sunlight. It is really a horror story.
Statistically, the chances of being hit by an asteroid are about 1 in 6,000, greater than the risk of being killed in a plane crash, but less than the risk of dying in a car.
Objects up to a quarter of a mile in diameter pass the Earth every few years. We only detect a small fraction of those. The concern is not about those that we see, but the much larger number we don't see.
To do it, people like Tom Garrels have developed a sky search program that can work with fairly standard astronomical telescopes, such as the one he runs at Kitt Peak National Observatory near Tucson. A computer scans what the telescope sees, looking for objects that move faster across the star fields than the normal flotsam and jetsam. In this picture, the asteroid is in the top square. Each square represents a half hour of travel. It's moving faster than anything else in the picture. After tracking a few days, it would be possible to predict if the object would ever cross Earth's path years in advance. But even if you find one, what do you do about it?
You could nudge the thing out of the way. You could advance it in its orbit or delay it in its orbit such that the impact would not occur.
Attaching small rocket engines to the object to act like the braking rockets on a space shuttle might make it possible to slow it down enough for it to miss the Earth. Blowing it up could just make more pieces to rain down on our heads. Maybe we've been lucky so far. The question is whether a change of luck is on the way. If that's the case, Tom Garrels and his colleagues want to know about it soon enough to be able to turn the odds in our favor. They believe 5 telescopes like this one, spaced around the globe, would be enough to do the job. Jim Slade, ABC News at the University of Arizona, Kitt Peak.
Until they get them, we'll just keep our fingers crossed. That is World News Sunday. I'm Forrest Sawyer. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.
From Washington, this has been World News Sunday.
This has been a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source.
You women are all alike. A one-night stand could cost her her life.
This is a nightmare.
Tim Matheson, Susan Lucci, the woman who sinned Sunday.
Even if you don't subscribe to the Des Moines Register, you've probably noticed that it's been redesigned so it's easier than ever to find just what you're looking for. And you may have noticed that the Register has expanded its local news coverage so you can keep up with what's happening in Des Moines. But you may not know that you can get